Today I'm going to be creating an organic house groove from scratch, and by the end you'll have something that sounds like this. Like that. There we go. All of the sounds used in this video are going to be from the Organic House Essentials Starter Pack, which contains over 100 free Organic House sounds that you can grab using the link down below. Let's dive straight in. And by the way, I'm going to make this project file available for all of my Patreon, so whatever comes out today, I'm going to chuck onto my Patreon page. So let's get started. Grab yourself a coffee if you have one prepared. It really helps the creative flow. So I'm going to start in session view today. So we have just one MIDI track, and I'm going to use only sounds that are from this free Organic House Essential Starter Pack. I'm going to use the sub-emphasis kick. It's a really soft kick. You can see that it doesn't have a lot of transient. More of the information is in the body of the sound rather than the initial transient. You can see there's a bit of a slope here. So what I'm going to do is double click, right click fourth, and just draw on a single note on a fourth grid. Make sure that's selected, Command L to loop it up. Hit Shift and Tab to move out of device view back into session view. So now if we play, dial it down a bit. Yeah, good kick. 120 BPM, that's the BPM that we're going to work with today. Cool, so I'm going to now create a new MIDI track and a plugin that I've been enjoying recently a lot, and I included some sounds in the free pack as well, is Audiothing. This is kind of like an Afro drum synth, which I really love using. So we're just going to blend in the conga low. I'm going to mute all the other tracks. Okay, so let's place the tom differently. Tom, aka conga low. It's kind of loud. Let me tune it down a bit here. So I just tuned it down using this fader. Disable the low cut. I don't like the placement. Let's go for like a, maybe like this. Perfect. Now let's enable the maracas for like that shaker groove. Dial down the volume a bit. Nice. Cool. Let's resample both of those tracks. I'm going to create two audio tracks, and I'm going to mute the conga low first. On track 3, I'm going to select Latin percussion because I want the audio to come from there. Hit record arm. And then let's record. So it's recording the shaker. Perfect. I think that's enough. I don't need that much. And now let's go back into Latin percussion. Shift and Tab. Open up this dude. Mute the maracas. Open up the conga low. Unmute it, I mean. And now in this track, audio input from Latin percussion. Record arm. Record. Perfect. See, is automatically already looped it quite well. So now we can get rid of the Latin percussion since we have both of our tracks as audio. Yeah, so we have some high frequency information. Call this maracas, and let's call this one tom. And the low frequency information, which is the tom, right? I'm gonna give it a rough color coding here, like this. Assign track color to clips, assign track color to clips, and this is gonna be called the kick. Nice. Let's go back to the free sample pack and let's select maybe some kind of a shaker groove that adds to the groove. Can go into shaker loops. Sounds somewhat Afro-y, the vibe that we're going for today. So let's just drag it in here. I just dragged it into where it says drop files and devices here. Now we're going to reduce the volume of the shaker quite drastically because we want to mix downward, upward. Of course, we have to hit play. Yeah, maybe chuck in a few more shakers. So just to get an A/B comparison, we can click on these cells and load in other clips or other audio sounds, samples. On point is nice. Actually, I like this one and the other one, so maybe I can combine them. Maybe pan one to the left, the first one, and the second one to the right. So we get more stereo shakers. Let's group these shakers, call them shakers. There we go. And dial down the group volume here. Just a bit. Nice. Let's add a complementary tom groove to the existing tom. So I'm going to create a new audio track, Command T, right next to our tom loops, and let's see if these fit. Yeah, this one sounds rather non-tonal. I know it has a key, which is D, but it still might fit because the toms are really short. And let's disable the low cut here. Hit play. Perfect. It fills in the gaps. So whenever this guy is not playing, the main tom, the off tom, what I like to call it, is playing. See the levels here? It's either one or the other. They're never playing at the same time, which makes the bass stay clean. So let's group these two, call them toms, assign track color to clips, and now let's add some more loops. Let's close off the shakers, close off the toms, so it's cleaner, the session here. Next to maracas, we can add a new audio track and add in maybe some shaker, maybe a more dominant shaker groove that plays on the 8th note. It's like a tss, tss. This one's nice. Drag and drop, hit play. Now you can just click on your sample here, double click, and it switches. Mix it down. Perfect. Let's group these maracas and hats into a new group, call them Hatsy, something like that. Assign track color to clips and mix them in. Fair enough. Close them down. Percussion loops, we can maybe drag and drop some. I always usually like to start with conga loops because those tend to sound more organic. Let's just take this one. I don't know how it sounds. Dial it down, hit play. Click on the conga sample here. Double click to change it for another one. This one's more subtle. What's with this one here? Let's go for 1. I like 1. Nice. Good. Maybe a clap loop. Let's see. We don't have a clap here. Claps usually are not so Afro. Afro house music doesn't utilize claps as much. It's just something that I feel like I don't hear. Organic house, on the other side, like the All Day I Dream, Anjunadeep style organic house, they do use a lot of claps. So let's go for that. I'm going to create a new audio track right next to the congas. Maybe we can layer a few of these claps. So this one sounds rather organic, right? Drag and drop, reduce volume, hit play. Okay, it sounds good, but I feel like on its own it's a bit too thin. So I'm going to create a new audio track, Command T. Next to that, another clap loop. Let's go for clap loop number 4 and hit play. Oh, that's way too loud, dude. Dial it down, reset the thing, the levels. Now we can group both of these claps, call them claps, make them, I don't know, yellowish, because they do belong to the drums. Let's put them up here, right between the hats and the toms. Assign track color to group tracks and clips. So what the clip look? And dial it down. Or you know what? Before we mix in the group, let's mix in the individual sounds first. Yeah, I feel like less of this, more of this. And what I like to do for claps sometimes is shorten down the transient. So you can double click the clap, for example, that you'd like to shorten down. Beats, forward transient, dial down the transient. And if we hit solo on this clap, or if we lengthen it, it's not as noticeable because this sound is already very short, but it leaves in less of that tail. Yeah, just a bit maybe, but I kind of like the tail, so I'm going to keep it in. But I want more of the second clap to come through because it's more of like a body clap. Yeah, so this layer is just like a organic layer, like a hand clap with textures. And this layer over here, it's more like a solid foundation, a body. So the claps here, we're going to dial them down as a group. Maybe do some mixing as well here within the group. You know what? I'm actually going to dial it down from bottom up. So I'm going to mix it from bottom up rather from top to bottom. I feel like I get a better signal that way. You can also close your eyes. I feel like it helps. Peaking. Yeah, that's enough. Claps don't need to be that loud. I myself tend to make claps very loud. Don't make them too loud. Just keep them chill. You can always dial them back up later, but keep them quiet at the beginning at least. What about the shakers? Yeah, I feel like we could dial them up a bit. Nice. Okay, fine. Then we can add some detail-y percussion after the conga. And I have a lot of videos on my channel on how to create detailed percussion. I guess I'll just leave a link here somewhere, but I have a few of those in the Organic House Essentials Starter Pack as well. You can see those blippy little textural percussion loops. They go really well with Organic House, but make sure to dial them from the bottom up. So hit play. Fills in the groove, adds a bit more groove. You hear that offbeat percussion? Ba-tup, ba-tup. That's what creates groove. It's those little percussion bleeps in the background that you can barely hear but add to the groove that add a lot of value to the track. Next one, next percussion loop. Let's maybe go for a second one. Hit play. Jesus, dial it down. Yeah, this one's really heavy and textural, so what I usually do for these types of grooves is either narrow it down with the EQ to just dial in on a certain frequency range, or really just set them very low in the mix. I like the way this adds a lot of groove. Yeah, group these, highlight, so shift click both of them, Command G. Create a group, and you know what, I'm going to chuck in the congas here. Call this one percussion. Yeah, give him a greenish type color. Assign track to clips, track color to clips, and then you can mix the group in here from bottom up. Nice. Yeah, I feel like it's starting to sound really full. Very nice. And to top it off, you can then use the top loops that I've included in the pack as well, just to give it some extra flavor. So, you know, these top loops are a variety of different layers, and I usually don't like to start my groove using a top loop. I like to use top loops as like the cherry on top of the cake. You create the foundation yourself, but then you add a top loop on top just to maybe give it some extra flavor. And that's what we're going to do here. So this on-point groove, you can hear like shakers, hi-hats, claps, a lot of different layers. Let's just add it in here, dial it down, hit play. There we go, flavor. And what I like to sometimes do is also layer top loops. So what you could do is just Command D, duplicate this channel and replace this second top loop with another one. So click on the clip, double click, hit play. Yeah, and just layer top loops. So you're not using top loops as a starting point. You can do it, of course, but I recommend that you create the groove yourself from scratch and add top loops just as a cherry on top. Makes sense, right? Top loops. Let's group these top loops, call them tops, and dial them down or dial them up from the bottom up. There we go. Perfect. I like the way this sounds. Voila, bila. Let's add an ambience to this groove just to make it feel more human, more organic. And I actually went into the forest and recorded a couple ambient sounds here. What you can do is just chuck them in, dial them down a bit, and hit play. Got some like winter forest ambience, which is pretty cool. You can also double click the sound, warp it, and it'll take some time to load because it's a pretty long ambient sample. It'll then warp it. You can then loop it and make sure that it's on Complex or Complex Pro at least, because these are cleaner warp modes for ambient sounds. Shift tab to exit and hit play. Yeah. Got some little birds in the background. was actually really funny. When I recorded this ambient sample, a bird popped out of nowhere and started cleaning itself with the snow on the tree, which was really cool. What I like to do when I have all the drums together is put them next to each other. So perks, tops, and ambience I'm going to put up front. The shakers as well. And the hi-hats until the shakers, we're going to group them. So everything besides the kick and tom are in this tops group. If we solo it, see, it's more high frequency information. We can then add a drum bus, which is an audio effect enabled live, BUSS, drum bus, and just do some group compression. Leave the dampening at 20 Hertz. We don't want to take away any high frequencies. Drive, you can leave it there. Compression, this is some pretty hard compression. Turn that on. Make sure to dial down the output because it's going to boost your gain pretty high. Yeah, it kind of brings out the hi-hats. And you can then dial down the transients here. Or give it a boost. Like give it more sustain, I mean. It becomes less snappy, more loose. More snappy, less loose. Play that with the rest of the drums. Oh. So I kind of like the sustain here. Most of the time I actually do this move. But in this case, I feel like it actually feels more organic and human if we bring out the sustain. Just gives it a bit more saturation, some drive using this drive knob here, soft, and the default compression, which I really like. Yeah, leave it this way. I usually leave it at 100%, just dial down the output gain. Maybe an EQ afterwards, just to make sure that there isn't many low end. Perfect, already looks quite clean here. Nice. And my absolute favorite way to transition into a melodic part is by adding a pad. And I have a ton of these in the Organic House Essentials Starter Pack and a lot more in the Sound Pack, the Organic House Essentials Sound Pack, which is coming out very soon. Just going to give you an overview of the folder, how it looks like here. Pads. Yeah. You can see that the full pack has quite a lot more, but I did make sure to include some of my favorites in the free version as well. So let's stick with the free version. I kind of like this You're Safe Now one. Sounds really peaceful. Drag and drop, dial down volume, hit play. Yeah. Nice. Let's give it a blue color because it's just peaceful and mellow. And for pads, what I like to do is just click on these cells and load a variety of different pads, just so I know which vibe suits me the most. And I'm gonna load in basically all the pads from the pack here, just a few of my favorite ones. Maybe dial it down more. Yeah, pads, you don't want to have them too loud. Keep them low, keep them subtle, keep the drum groove the primary focus. This is just a textural thing, right? Yeah, I can just hit play. Yeah. I like the first one. I remember using Omnisphere to create these pads. Omnisphere and I think a few other plugins. I need to double check, but I'll create a tutorial on how to create these pads in the future. For now, if you like them, grab the pack. So what key is this pad? Let's double click it. D major. Okay. Shift tab, exit. Let's type in D. And let's see if we can find a bass line that is in D. So loops, bass. Yeah, this should fit. Just drag and drop. Dial down the volume. Hit play. Take away the low cut. Yeah, it actually fits, even though it's in minor. But since it doesn't have that many notes, it fits to the pad. Let's maybe loop a certain section. So highlight, Command L. kind of like these lower sub rumbles here. Change the starting position here. There we go. We have ourselves basically everything we need to create the track here. Let's make it red. The bass. Call it bass. Yeah. And once you have yourself the idea together, you can hit tab to move into the arrangement view. Make sure that this loop is disabled. So right click your loop slider and disable the loop. Hit tab again and just hit record. I'm going to hit tab to see what I'm recording. Going to make sure I record enough information. Maybe about like 16 bars or something like that. Hit pause, spacebar. Now you hit this convert to arrangement view button is what I like to call it. Let's actually see how it's called. Back to arrangement. Yeah, there we go. Back to arrangement. And you can cut out the end. So everything that's not inside 16 bars, just cut it out. And now we have this. And if you want to start arranging your tracks, just take away the bass heavy elements from the intro, like the tom and the bass. Maybe for an additional 8 bars here. And just progressively add elements starting from the bottom. Now we're here. Starting from the finish to the end. And what I like to do is also add high cuts on the pad, auto filter, chuck it in there, and just slowly introduce the high frequencies over a longer period of time. You can also highlight sections, hit Command-Shift-D to duplicate the time. You might need to make sure that you readjust your clips, but it's actually quite a handy shortcut for arrangement. You can take away the bass maybe here, take away the kick maybe here, like that. And add a transition effect to transition back into the bass here. And I made sure to include a couple of those in the pack as well. Yeah, so something like this. Chuck it in here, dial down the volume, hit Command to go off grid, and put it right in between this section here. There we go. And then you can add more melodies on top, maybe a few more drums. Just take this and duplicate and start just moving forward like that. There we go. Yeah. Thanks for watching the video. You can grab the Organic House Essential Starter Pack in the description below. Also, this project file is on my Patreon. I will see you in the next video. Peace.